So let me go back to my apprentice years. When I learned how to flock a saddle, my master always came across and says, when you flock a saddle, it has to be a very flat, even, smooth surface, and it shouldn't be thicker than a tea towel folded 4 times. And we all had tea towels lying on the bench. And he says, squish the tea towel. So what you noticed, it's flat, it's smooth, and it's firm. Now, this company was huge. I worked in 2 companies which were over 150 years old. So they've been around and obviously very successful. And they say the panel of a wool flock panel is there to broaden the rails of the tree. So for some of you, you might not seen trees before. So this is what they call the rails of the saddle, okay? The rails of the tree. So when the rider sits on top, the weight-bearing surface is distributed with the tree, and you can see how narrow these rails are. Now, Western saddles, I have one here. Look how wide these rails are, much wider, right? You see much wider, well, panels. So now if I have a wool flock saddle, okay, so here's a panel, what is just half a panel. We've always been told that a wool flock saddle should be firm and smooth and even. Now you can say yourself, what is firm? There was a cool trick they have given us. This is take your pinky and squish it together with your thumb and then measure and feel how firm your muscle is. So that's how the panel should be filled. Now I answer the question. If you fill that saddle smooth, even, with that kind of a firm but soft panel, then you have maybe once a year, every 2 years reflocking. Now you say, but how come some saddle fitting schools teach us that it should be reflocked every 6 weeks? Well, that's a different story now, because we have lots of changes in the industry. Number one, we have a lot of saddle fitting schools. They don't understand what the purpose of the panel is. They just put soft fluff inside. Soft fluff would be if I take my index finger and my thumb, slightly touch it. This is very schwobbly and soft. Now, as a horse owner who don't understand the purpose of the panel, he says, oh, the panels are so nice and soft. You would never do it if you ride a motorcycle, a bicycle, or a car. When I say your tire should be very squishy, very soft, so I can pinch the tires together, you would say to me, are you for real? If I ride my motorcycle or my car or my bicycle with a soft, spongy tire, the rim would destroy the tire. So it sucks right through. And this is exactly what happened when you have a panel what is very mushy. You don't distribute the pressure of the rails. The rails fall right through. It's exactly the same as when you have a bicycle. Now you can say, oh, that's not the same. One is air and one is wool. Well, it starts to move around, it balls up a little bit. Now we have a problem. The second reason why it changed from this firm panel, like one pinky, right? So I'm over 60 years now old when I started this. If you go back 40, 50 years, you will see panels that feel really, really firm. You say, oh my God, I would never put this on my horse. Funny enough, when you look at a Western saddle, here's a Western saddle right there. Okay? When you feel that wool panel, that's pretty firm, just like that. How come so many Western horses have so little problem and so many English saddles have so much problem? And we talk about restuffing because we forget the purpose of the stuffing. So if you are a believer of the fluffy panels, you need to stuff that saddle every 6 weeks. And that's a stuffing school what promotes it heavy duty to stuff your saddle every 6 weeks. What else changes? Well, the horse's physique changes. Okay, when the horse develops, ages, and gets older, gets more muscles, or goes in training, they have different physiques. So the form has to be matched from the saddle to the horse's back. So that is not because the wool got naughty or the wool got firm or too hard or too soft, just because the shape doesn't fit anymore. I like to use the term restuffing or fitting a saddle Compare that to a religion, right? Religion could be many different beliefs. And with fitting, there's many different beliefs in fitting. But when it comes to the animal, the horse, okay, and we want to have this long back muscle here, where most saddle sits and should sit since thousands of years, okay, we want a panel what distributes the pressure over the middle of the longest back, longus dorsi. And then the horse is happy, brings the back up, hind leg underneath, and he's free. But if the panel is too fluffy and this rim of the tree, like on the tire, falls through, worst part, the saddle starts to swim on the skin. It's exactly the same if you take one hand here, and then you do this sunburn, what we all did as kids, and that really hurts. So you're shearing the skin. So it's a long answer to one question: how often should the saddle stuffed? If I go with veterinarians who write books about it, they say horses' bodies can change a lot in 4 to 6 weeks. If you ask trainers, who will say, well, I can make quite a bit of a difference in 3 to 4 months. So we find if you have a look, if the shape of the horse's back still match the bottom of the saddle, you're fine, unless you have one of those fluffy panels. Just like the girth, the stuffing of the panel, that could be a wonderful lecture, because I think people really need to be educated on their saddles, because some saddles cost $200, some cost $2,000, some cost $8,000, some cost $15,000. And you don't want, no matter how much you paid for the saddle, somebody putting wool flock in there and don't understand the purpose. My recommendation, every 3 to 4 months, because that is when most likely the shape of the horse has to slightly change.